things I hear about people that are trying to make their own beer, or they want to get started in making their own beer, is, either there's two things. I either don't have enough time or I don't have the right equipment. So the answer is doing a small batch. So I went ahead and went on Northern Brewer, and they sell 1 gallon kits to make your own beer. It's an extract kit. So in that kit, you're gonna get everything that you need to make beer. Okay, you're gonna get your hops, you're gonna get steeping grains, you get malt extract, you even get a little bag to put your steeping grains in. They give you the yeast as well as fizz drops for the bottling phase. So I'm gonna walk you through how to make a small batch of beer, if you're 21 or over, of course. You're gonna need a few things. First thing, you're gonna need a pot big enough to hold little over a gallon of water, 1.25 gallons of water. The other thing you're gonna need when you're ready is something to ferment it in. Now, I did pick this bucket up from Northern Brewer as well too. It was $8.99. It's nice because it has a pre-drilled grommeted hole in there for an airlock, but this is gonna be used for fermentation. So you will need something to put your beer into after you're done making it, so that it can ferment and turn into beer. Start by filling your pot with 1.25 gallons of water. So while your water's heating up, you're gonna go ahead and take your steeping grains and you're gonna put it inside of this mesh sack that is provided. Then you're gonna take your mesh sack and you're gonna drop it in your water while your water heats up. Think of it as making tea. That simple. Go ahead and drop that grain sack straight into your water. And while your water's heating up, just before it gets to a boil, you can go ahead and pull it out. So with these steeping grains, I like to kind of give them a little stir around every once in a while. You'll notice that the water is starting to look more like tea. So the grains are releasing some of the sugars into the water. And we're gonna let it go and bring it to a boil. All right, so my water is getting close to a boil here, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to remove my steeping grains. I'm gonna go ahead and let them drain nicely. Get all that liquid out of there because that is got sugars in it that your yeast is going to need to help it ferment. It is just about to come to a boil. So while it was coming up to a boil, I got everything ready, just read through my directions. I lay everything out so that I know what's going in, because we're going to be putting some things into this wort during the boil. So I went ahead and I laid out my first, once it comes to a boil, I'm gonna add my gold malt extract syrup and my first round of hops at 45 minutes. We're gonna be boiling it for a total of 45 minutes. After that, I'm gonna add some German pearly hops. And then after that, we're gonna add some Cascade hops. It's about to come to a boil here. You're gonna wanna kind of watch it because it can foam up and foam depending on the size of your pot. I've got a little bit of room in there, but it can foam up and boil over. So when it comes to a boil, just keep an eye on it so it doesn't boil over and make a mess all over your stove. Just come to a boil, we're gonna add our first additions here at 45 minutes. So the first thing that's going in is some gold malt extract syrup. Make sure you stir this in well so it doesn't burn to the bottom. The other thing I like to do is once the syrup is in there, get some of this water back inside of this jar here and try to get all of that syrup out that you possibly can. So I just use my spoon and pour water in there, shake it around and dump it back in. All right, and after the syrup is in, we're gonna go ahead and add our first hop addition, which is this Centennial hops. So they're already pre-measured out, which is beautiful. I always give them a good smell first and stir them in. Once you've got your additions in, just make sure you boil it. Follow the directions. The next set of hops will be going in 25 minutes. So I just set a timer and I let this boil away. All right, so it's time for our second hop addition. We're gonna put in our German pearly hops. And we've got about 20 more minutes to go in our 45-minute boil. So I'm gonna add these. And we're almost done. So this last addition of hops is a flame out addition. So all that means is you turn your flame off, it stops boiling. And for this one, we're putting in 2 packages of the same hop, Cascade hops. You just dump them in. and let them chill. All right, and it's very important to remember that now that your wort is done boiling, that anything that touches it needs to be sanitized. All right, so now we need to take this wort that's been boiling and we need to cool it down as quickly as possible. Since we're using a pot from our kitchen, which is relatively small, we're just going to transfer that into an ice bath that I have prepared in my sink. Now, all we need to do is wait for our wort to cool down to somewhere between 60 and 80 degrees. If you can get it to about 70 degrees, that is ideal. So every once in a while, I like to walk by and just kind of move it around and make sure that it's moving around inside there to cool it down. Now that your wort is done boiling, anything that comes in contact with it needs to be sanitized. For that, I use this stuff, Star San. While your wort is cooling down is a great time to sanitize everything. So I've got my fermenter bucket filled with sanitizer, and all I need to do is take everything that's going to go in there, scissors into the sanitizer, my yeast into the sanitizer, and then I'll be using this handy auto siphon as well. So I'm going to put that in the sanitizer and get that cleaned up as well too. So I didn't have a lot of ice, so my ice bath kind of melted really quickly. So I ended up just putting this in my refrigerator outside in the pot, and it'll probably take about 30 minutes to get down to yeast pitching temperature. But there it is. Colossal fail. I tried to use my auto siphon, but just goes to show you don't really need it. I did get the beer in here in the fermenter. It is, I just dumped the pot into the fermenter, pitched my yeast in there, sprinkled the yeast inside, and now I'm gonna wait a couple weeks. So in the meantime, drink some beer, save the bottles, because you're gonna need them. You might wanna start looking at a bottle cap and a bottle capper as well too, because if you're gonna put beer in bottles, you're gonna need those things. Or jump on Amazon and get those nice brown 16-ounce swing top bottles. Then you got a bottle and a cap in one. Cheers. So I have to be honest, I always get a little worried, especially in a plastic bucket, because I can't see if fermentation is happening. So I was very happy this morning to see activity in the airlock. So it is bubbling, meaning that fermentation has begun.